Hi listeners, welcome to my channel. Neptune meets Venus and Mercury while Mercury stands still, about to go retrograde. We seek divine through love and creative work, trying to feel whole through them, looking for lost oneness through merging with an ideal or through merging with another. There is nostalgia to this, there is love to it, and there is longing to it. We believe it would take us to the ecstatic realm, fusing us with something bigger than ourselves, through a lover, or a temptation, or a creative creation. Beyond the mundane, the limitations of the now, and here, we seek an experience with no boundaries. We seek a fantasy. In the pursuit of the ideal are many sacrifices, many adjustments, some romances, and some deceptions. We are not only coming in touch with what we love, what we wish to create, what we wish existed, and what our artistic creative abilities are, but we are also getting in touch with what we desire in someone, what we desire in something we would like to work on. We are also coming face to face with the cost that it would take to make that fantasy real. The cost could be our ego and many unconscious patterns, which we would come face to face with in June. We will go deeper into what's about to come over the course of next 22 days because of this aspect today. One quick note on the lunar eclipse. If you have watched the video or heard the podcast, I had also left the theme by zodiac sign in the comments and the details section of the video and the podcast in case you didn't get to see. Do refer to that for your sign specific themes for the lunar eclipse that just happened, which will only show up fully by September. More to come in coming videos. Today we talk about Mercury retrograde and the influence of Neptune on both Venus and Mercury that we're going to experience for the next 22 days. My name is Charu and I'm your host on this journey. So let's begin. Neptune fog is infiltrating our Venus, which is our heart, and Mercury, our mind. And this pattern continues in June, extending to our ego and our physical body, our identity. Love becomes sacrifice, creativity becomes all-consuming, in search of a divine. Even deceptions are met with compassion and adjustments. Our need to be fair to ourselves is compromised to patience, adjustment, and flexibility to the other. Sometimes deception and illusion will come in the beautiful cover of love and happiness. We need to be mindful of that. Do open yourself to the possibilities that this aspect is going to show you, but be vigilant where you're crossing the line between being understanding to the other and being a doormat for another or getting used by another. Today, Moon is in Capricorn, meeting Jupiter, positively amping up our own ambition, showing us that there is a balance to be had as we go through the coming month between water and earth, between love and ambition, between compassion and protecting yourself. It's whispering in our ears, we can seek divine creativity and learn the art of selfless love without losing our love for ourselves. Acknowledge, express your sense of betrayal and rage at any ideal lost, if any. Don't deny your human side. In a relationship, remember, Venus is not moon. I have spoken about it before. Venus is not moon. In a relationship, Venus is not maternal. At this point in time, because of the confusion, I highly suggest do not finalize business deals or don't finalize things. The next 22 days are about exploration and going back and forth. And we are not yet seeing the full picture. We are not seeing things clearly. We are in the pursuit of the whole, feeling whole within, and we are in the pursuit of divine. But we might be looking for it in the wrong places. It's the right time to channel your selfless love in your divine creations. But Neptune doesn't want you to get lost in another person. It wants you to find the real you. It's dissolving every inch of fake ego identity that we create for others. And the fake identity that we create to protect ourselves. It's leaving us a little bit bare when it takes that off. As that ego identity fades, in that confusion, we sometimes start looking for the next person who can define us in that vulnerable state. We start looking for the next structure who will put us in a box. We become the lover, the employee, the nurturer, the mother, the server, because life feels uneasy without the labels. We lose our internal radar, and very soon our happiness or success or life gets defined by somebody or someone or something outside of ourselves. And then one day we wake up to the fact that the current shell we are living in, the current ego identity, is not our truth. And the whole Neptune process of dissolution of that structure, of that fake ego identity starts all over again. Neptune is doing that dissolution right now of a fake structure. And it would be a process we are about to go deeper into in June. As Sun meets Neptune on 13th of June, and then Neptune goes retrograde end of June, while Neptune throughout this month is making deeper contacts with Mercury, our mind, and waking us up to many things we were not seeing before. This process of dissolution is going to enhance our empathy. It will soften us, make us more compassionate to others, bring out our creativity, bring out our love for others, bring out our selfless love for the world, which is much needed in the world right now. But this self-sabotaging or scapegoating, if I can coin a new word, that has to stop. This intentional suffering on the way to divine, this I need to give up anything that gives me satisfaction to be compassionate to others. I have to be scapegoated in some ways to achieve what is needed. I need to give up my own good to serve others. And many such fake beliefs of suffering on the way to what we want need to be worked on. This I need to be a little damaged or act like a damaged soul till I meet my soulmate. Or I need to be a destroyed artist till I be successful in my work. They do need to be brought in control. It would be a key theme of June, where this self-sabotaging aspects or the self-scapegoating aspects will come to surface. Seeing where we create our own suffering and how that suffering is optional. I am not saying work and pain are optional. Work and pain are not optional. They are very much the part of our existence. They are part of our life. Work and pain are part of life. That is called living. But suffering on the process is optional. Many of the suffering patterns would be coming to surface today and in the coming month. And they are the patterns that block us from moving forward. Some of us can constructively channel it into creativity because we have a medium to do so. But some of us will need to actively pursue and work it out through our conscious mind. Yes, there is some place for suffering in the creative process, but largely it delays us from getting what we want. We are tied to the womb with some of those suffering patterns. Some of those are not even from this lifetime. But the soul chose to incarnate to work through them still, because they need to be physically worked out. Those subconscious, unconscious, suffering patterns that we are repeating that create our reality over and over again in the same way, that loop needs to be broken. And those subconscious, unconscious patterns in Gemini season are worked through a conscious process of expressing, of writing, of going through it. That's the process of Mercury, Hermes, our mind going down into the attic to sort out the things that have been buried for a very long time. I have my Mercury in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, and it can almost act like a retrograde Mercury. I can smell Neptune coming from miles. And I've been smelling it for quite a few days. It's the self-deception and the external deception. I know it's shadowing loads of our minds right now. Many of us want to define it as karma, this suffering, and call it as karma, because it's easier to deal with it when we call it something like that. Because they are our own patterns, internal patterns. And it's easier to call them karma because we cannot see them. We are blind to them because they are inside us, buried in a blind spot. So externalizing them makes it easier. And yes, many of those patterns, yes, they have been passed through generations. They have been passed over parents, grandparents, same emotional patterns, same suffering patterns. And I myself live with them. These are the emotions that create the same reality, the same internal buried emotions and subconscious patterns. They create the same external realities. Same patterns create same outcomes. Doing same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We know what that is. But because we don't see them, let's call it karma. I'm not saying I don't believe in karma. I'm just saying there's a lot of free will in how we deal with the unknown within us that goes beyond karma. We have a storehouse of untapped within us. And the value of it is dissipated when we look for a rationale of our own suffering outside of ourselves. Hermes Mercury will go down from tomorrow, 29th of May, for the next 22 days. It will go down to the attic and do what it does best. It will go down to the attic of our mind and it will bring it all back up from the dead. All the repressed thoughts, people we thought have left from our past, which will show us some emotional patterns, old patterns that we don't normally see, but they run our conscious life. They will come back up because it's time to see them, because it's the right time for those repressed thoughts and patterns to be brought to life, to be brought to light so we can move forward. There will be this smell of mothballs in those thoughts because they were stored for such a long time. And we will try to disown them because they don't smell like us. They smell like somebody else external to us. But if we are brave enough to hold them close, remembering the bad with the good that they brought us, we are in for an inspiring time ahead. The artist, the writer, the healer, the composer, the actor, the orator, the inspirational speaker, the religious leader, the mystic, the prophet, the conveyor of the divine within us, then becomes a vehicle of inspiring others with what we create. We touch the chord that runs through all of us when we get in touch with that subconscious. Because we strip off the pretense, the fake ego, and we are able to rise above our own personal dilemmas. We become about more than us. Focus on our suffering as much as in that moment feels important, and I'm not saying we should ignore our emotions, but too much getting lost in that reduces us as a person. Yes, they're part of our human experiences, but most of us, including myself, we have a tendency to get lost right in there, in that suffering, and we shrink instead of moving forward and taking those as war wounds of us living life. Those are war wounds of us having lived fully. Those are war wounds of us having tried things, attempted at them, attempted at what we thought in that moment our heart wants. Those are war wounds which are proof that we can go beyond our current limitations. Those are war wounds of us opening our hearts to others, of loving fully, of experiencing every aspect of life. Those are war wounds of our potential expansiveness. But the individual pity party we throw, they shrink that experience. They shrink our courage. They shrink our chord with the collective. Because that pity party that we throw for ourselves, there are no other people in it. But when you touch that chord with the collective, after accepting your own wounds, now you have a collective who feels with you. Not for you. They feel with you. It adds a level of authenticity to your own creation that will never come from suffering alone. Our life will always be created by what we unconsciously aim for. So the unconscious self-pity will always aim for life of pity from others. It fervently creates it by making conscious choices to get that pity. I have done this so many times myself. The unconscious desire for freedom will sabotage any relationships that curtail that freedom and bind us. The unconscious need for isolation, to find oneself, will always create a situation so that one is left alone by others. The unconscious need for reset can even create illnesses of the body and the mind just to get that much needed relief that we are not giving ourselves. The unconscious fear of achievement, of deserving that achievement, will give away all its wealth through charity, or will give away self-sabotage its own victory through debauchery, because the unconscious belief is that we don't deserve it. The unconscious fear of bad karma could dedicate their life to service of others, though that may not be the only reason. There are other reasons to do that as well, but they would give up their entire life for it. The aimlessness of life becomes deeper when we don't know these unconscious patterns that are running our conscious life, and they pretty much decide all of our decision making. Till we don't realize these patterns, and we don't recognize and accept that we live in the heaven or hell of our own mind's creation, we will feel lost. I'm not saying there isn't real pain in the world, quite the contrary, there is. Many of us can do so much to elevate that for another, but much part of the suffering is created by these unconscious patterns, and many of our repressed talents are sitting right beneath those very patterns, waiting to be discovered. As Mercury goes retrograde tomorrow and stays so for 22 days, Mercury in Gemini is going to be a psychological bloodhound. When it's retrograde, it will leave no part of our brain, of our psyche, unturned and unanalyzed. It's turning at the degree of pruning. So the options we have opened and the nets we have weaved because of those subconscious patterns would have to be cut off. Some housekeeping is going to be in order. We would be redoing, rethinking, reassessing, re-evaluating how we connect with others, how we connect with our friends, with our family, our immediate neighborhood, our local community, our society, and through our social media and connections. And we will plot our forward move of how we want to connect with others for the next 22 days. We're going to plan all of that in the next 22 days. We will have some answers when Sun and Mercury meet on 10th of June and the tide turns from retrospection to working towards the future, from looking back to planting new seeds. But before that, Neptune is going to flood our unconscious. Neptune is personified by God of Sea. When it meets Mercury now and again in June, our feelings come to surface. Sometimes they come up as divine creations and we create the greatest work, creative work of our lifetime. But many a times they are like tidal waves that completely wash us over, completely sweeping us over. Woolly thinking is the name of that aspect. Woolly thinking of the practical, while uncanny insights into the unconscious appear. Sensitivity, heightened sensitivity to every undercurrent, but not knowing where we left our keys. But this very confusion opens our mind because we are not paying attention to everything mundane. We are paying attention to what matters. It will open a very different part of our thinking. And it will also open us up to empathy with others, but also to the possibility that there are different versions of truth that exist. And we already saw this in play since 22nd of May. 22nd of May was the first time when Mercury and Neptune made a square with each other. They're going to meet 3 times. 22nd of May, right now, and you're going to experience another in the first week of June. The first time that square happened, different versions of truth we started seeing. That's when the mainstream media suddenly started questioning the origins of the pandemic. Yes, our mind is going to be open to different views, even to gossips, to alternative realities, but also to divine insights, also to appreciation of art, music, beauty to another level. This is a mind upgrade. Mercury retrograde is always an upgrade of our thinking, of our mind. Some call it escapism when Neptune is involved with Mercury. Many call it creativity. We sort of become the medium of inspiration and divine if we open ourselves up to the possibilities it's going to show us. We would need to double check the details. We would need to double check the facts and not yet come to the conclusion. Think a couple of times before pressing that retweet button on social media, communication, transport, travel. Not to retweet without reading. We don't want to become the part of the gossip. We don't want to become the part of the problem. Sacrifice sometimes needs to be made when this aspect comes, and we'll see that more. Some of you might have already experienced it. Sacrifice sometimes needs to be made for the younger and for a sibling or for a neighbor or for the community. The other things, devices can flood, undersea lines can break down, leaks happen, gossip leaks happen, news leaks happen, media leaks happen, miscommunication, misunderstanding, defunct thinking patterns come to light. There could be delays in physical travel. There could be specifically issues with siblings. With Mercury in Gemini, issues with siblings is a key factor that comes up. Communication devices can go bust. Indecision on commercial agreements, too much back and forth because the two people are not really seeing each other's perspective. One is speaking Greek, the other is, speaking Chinese. They don't understand each other's language when they're talking. Sacrifice for relatives or sibling, drowning phones, communication and travel issues, escapism. This will all be part of the next 22 days, especially till 10th of June. But the biggest creative outputs are also going to be part of this process we are about to get into. Mercury in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini also try to push us in turn to think of, sometimes what happens is that we have a great creative idea and we are really excited about it. We have found a way to transcend our own limitations with something completely out of this world. Mercury in Gemini, when it goes retrograde, it will push us to think of the commercial aspect of our creativity, rethink the medium of expression and how we are expressing, how we relay that idea to others, how do we convince them, how do we sell it, how do we sort of create a business around it, how we express what's nebulous, how do we make our creative ideas into usable, practical forms. Once those hidden skills, hidden talents, hidden desires come to surface, now how do we present them into a practical, commercially viable entity? I'm going to get onto two parts of our brain which it will activate, two parts of our psyche which it will activate. It reminds us that we sometimes, apart from bringing the gifts to the surface, this can truly remind us that what we have been chasing so far is evading us. And it will also remind us, so this is two parts of our thinking which it will activate. One says you're chasing something that keeps evading you. And the other one, it's like two people talking in our brain. The other one says, we choose to see what we want to see. So this is two sides of thinking which is going to be activated within us. Because Gemini, Mercury in itself has duality, and then with Neptune, it's like you're literally split into personalities and two people. One which understands why the process is happening, and the other that does not like that it is happening. So both sides of the now, that we are chasing something that is evading us, as well as that we are choosing to see what we want to see, meaning we are creating our reality right now. We have immense capacity with Neptune and Mercury to heal our mind, our thinking, and to upgrade our skills, heal our skills, and to go beyond our own boundaries. Neptune is literally walking on the clouds. When it is involved, it makes us go outside our own limitation, our own limited thinking. And at the same time, we have capacity to heal, to help, to motivate others with our words. the unexamined, the subconscious, the unconscious. For us to do this would have to be consciously analyzed through writing, through expressing, through talking, through creating, because without clearing that, our capacity to clearly perceive life would always be distorted by the unconscious complexes we do not see. Our unresolved issues linked with the past, linked especially with our relationship to our early environment and possibly siblings, would be preventing us from relating to the people around us in a natural way. Our fears would always self-sabotage our skills and expression if we don't face them. And that is the reason why Mercury retrograde happens, why Hermes goes to the attic. There was a house in Australia that recently burned down due to rodents in the basement of the house. They were slowly chewing the wiring of the house and set the whole house on fire. Almost the half of the city tried to save it, but they could not, unfortunately. And this has been spreading across some parts of Australia. The farmers got so disheartened from their crops being destroyed by the vermin, they don't even want to plant new crops. This is literally our unconscious patterns. This is how our unconscious pattern can literally show up, back up on the surface. We become like that when the attic is not cleaned. The thing is that they knew, the farmers and the owners of the house, they knew that flooding will bring those rodents back. They had had flooding and they knew rodents was coming back up. They possibly did not have astrology to warn them, but I guess you do. I'm telling you, attic is going to be flooded by Neptune. And rodents are going to come up in June. Some of you have already smelled those rodents in the past few days. They are the deceptive one. They are the ones that are taking us for a ride. They are our own subconscious pattern that are taking us for the ride. Before the house burned down, the family knew. The children in the family were being run over by the rodents. I'm sorry to be so descriptive, but I'm trying to explain. They had the warnings, is all I'm saying. And I'm not saying it's not unfortunate what happened, but we are possibly seeing those rodents crawl in our house for the past 1 week. We have possibly been receiving some of those warnings. I'm telling you, Hermes will try to fish that to the surface and show you right in your face in the month of June. I'm also telling you, Hermes will try to fish out the gifts which are hiding below it. The repressed gifts below the subconscious and the unconscious patterns. It's the Pandora's box. Repressed talents also will come up. Some of us have experienced those gifts as well in the past 1 week, coming back up. The things that we used to love to do, the things that we know are hidden desires in our mind that we want to come out, but it's sort of like those farmers, they're so disheartened by their crops getting repeatedly destroyed, they don't want to grow it anymore. So those gifts have been repressed because in the past they have felt defeated with those gifts many times, or they were told to repress them because they will never bring out fruits in real life. Both the rodents and the gifts of our subconscious will get louder in June. On 5th of June, 13th of June, and towards the end of the month and early July, these are the dates when we will see exaggerated display of them. 5th of June, 13th of July is when they are retrograde, but towards the end of the month and the early of July is when we will see them clearly in the correct perspective. We need to be careful of slick rodents outside of us. Those salespeople who are trying to sell us something that is not our idea. We need to be careful of our own unconscious fears that is blocking us. We need to come face to face with them. They need to be consciously dealt with. We need to get graceful to our repressed gifts. Those repressed gifts now need a voice. They need a practical expression. And we need to pull our sleeves up and get to work to figure out how to make them practically deployable. what is the practical application of those gifts, so they can be used by others? Can we make them accessible for others? Can we make them commercially viable so we can live those dreams, so we can live with those dreams as our reality? The thing why I'm emphasizing this is because Neptune and Pisces, which are the influence right now, the qualities of no boundaries with others, compassion, spirituality, creative genius, will become louder in 2022, because we'll have both Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces for the whole of 2022. So all these hidden repressed gifts will become very important to come out, as well as those sly salesperson, those sly rodents, those enemies that we don't normally see, both within and outside, the deceptive rodents or the subconscious fears and paranoia. They will also grow through leaps and bounds in 2022, when both Jupiter and Neptune will expand them, inflating everything physically, as well as inflating our imagination and our creativity. And this combination will oppose everything that's Virgo about us. Virgo archetypes is exacting and well-defined life of service, of traditional service. And this combination will oppose everything that's Virgo in the world, and it will challenge everything Gemini and Sagittarius, because Pisces makes square with Gemini and Sagittarius in opposition to Virgo. So the archetypes of Virgo, which is exacting, well-defined, being in a proper office, and in a well-defined setup of delivering our gifts, it will get challenged. The old working model will get challenged, as well as it will challenge everything Gemini and Sagittarius, which is media, information, the way the information is conveyed, the way we rely so much on data instead of intuition, instead of AI. It's where the patterns need to be seen more than the data, the physical data. The patterns is more important. Everything that is brain and logic will be challenged. The media, the way the media is used, will be challenged. All of that is going to be expanded in 2022. I'm writing a planetary discourse to try to explain this more in a tangible way. More of that later, but for now, I'm hoping this video prepares you better for the Hermes journey to the attic of our mind and our subconscious over June 2021. Good luck for that, and I'll see you in the next video now. Thank you.